need from me.
Happy Tuesday, Flyers fans. It's time for another episode of Shoot, another Flyer show. That's right, episode number 27. After we had our shotgun reaction show with Jim Behringer the night of the NHL draft, when the Philadelphia Flyers were shocked with 2 picks inside the top 12 after a surprising trade. So if you've clicked that thumbnail, you saw the man responsible for the trade, Daniel Briere, and the man he traded for, Jack Nesbitt, a big-time player out of the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL. We will get to him in a moment, though, because we have to touch on the man that fell to the Philadelphia Flyers at number 6, and that is Porter Martone. Porter Martone is now a member of the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm stupid excited to see this kid at development camp. It's going to be a heck of a busy day tomorrow as the Flyers open camp, I want to say around 8:30 in the morning. And then the Phillies have a doubleheader. I get the chance to cover the opening of those 2 games. So it should be a fun sports day in Philadelphia tomorrow. But the first chance for Flyers fans to potentially get eyes on Porter Martone. So who is Porter Martone? He is a big forward out of the OHL. He played for the Mississauga Steelheads before they moved to Brampton and became the Brampton Steelheads. Last year, he was the captain of the Steelheads, 37 goals, 61 assists for a staggering 98 points in 57 games. And honestly, anytime that you can get somebody that's averaging anywhere in the 1.3, 1.4s per game, you're doing pretty dang well. So in the regular season, just trying to do some quick math here, 98 points, 57 games. That gives 1.7 points per game last year in one of the best leagues for development in the OHL. Season before that, he had 71 points in 60 games for Mississauga Steelheads. And that was his pre-draft plus 1 year. And then he's also played for Team Canada, which is nothing to shake a stick at. 2 appearances at the World Juniors, including 1 captain appearance in 23-24. And then he appeared at the World Juniors and the World Championships themselves with newest teammates, Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim, as well as the recently announced Tyson Forrester, who appears to have suffered some injury during off-season training, so he might miss some time to start the year. If you are not familiar with that one, Ant Sanfilippo put that information out a little bit earlier today. Pulling up the tweet now just so I can kind of make sure that I have my facts straight. But it was a situation where I said, here it is. Had to wait for medical updates. Forrester likely to miss some significant time. The article itself is on Pattison, so I won't go ahead and read any more than that. But if you want more details, I know Ant San personally. Gotten the chance to meet him at the Phillies game. Great guy. Has always been really nice to me and pretty credible with his information. So be interesting to see how the Flyers navigate that through the first 6-8 weeks of the 2025-26 season. Now on to that graphic that you clicked on, and that's Jack Nesbitt. That's right. The Philadelphia Flyers traded number 22 and number 31 with the rival Pittsburgh Penguins to jump up to number 12 and take a center in Jack Nesbitt that a lot of people feel is a project that some feel they should have held firm at 22 and just taken him there because that's what his value is. And unfortunately, that's not exactly how things work in the NHL. As you'll hear in the interview with our special guest, the prospect Don, also his name's Anthony, but the prospect Don was very tapped in. He was on the draft floor, and he mentions there were multiple teams, including the Nashville Predators, that were picking right around that spot that were looking to grab Jack Nesbitt. So the Flyers made the trade, grabbed the big center that they want, 6'4" frame, January 2007 birthday, 6'4", 6'5", 185 pounds, physical two-way forward. I said it on Friday night. It reminds me a lot of the pick of Sean Couturier. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for the Flyers. Danny Briere said in his post-draft press conference that Nesbitt's ceiling is probably a high second line center. And I would be fairly happy if the Flyers were able to come away with that at 12. I do think personally they had their eyes on Roger McQueen. I have no intel on that, but I do just get the feeling they wanted to come away with one of the big centers in this draft, whether that would have been McQueen or Nesbitt. So they ended up moving up. They got Jack Nesbitt at number 12. And then a bit of success for the Flyers in the second round, very highly regarded second round by a lot of national pundits, whether that's Daily Faceoff or whether that's The Athletic. And that's managing to get a couple of people from the U.S. National Development Program. Carter Amico, the defenseman, Jack Murtaugh, a forward, and Shane Vinsagi, a forward, all having stints with the U.S. National Under-18. Amico, a big bruising defender, played only 4 games, played 17 games rather, this past season, is committed to go to Boston University, so he's stepping up from the USHL to the NCAA next season, which is pretty big news. He'll be joined by Jack Murtaugh at Boston University, another player that had the opportunity to skate for the USNTD junior program out there in Michigan, skated in 56 games, went to the World Juniors, 7 games, 6 points. Pretty good for Jack Murtaugh. And then Shane Vinsagi, 8 picks later. So it was Amico at 38, Murtaugh at 40, and then Vinsagi. He had the opportunity to get chosen at 48. And there's a lot of people that would have been quite happy with the Philadelphia Flyers to take him at 22 or 31. So to get him at 48 is a pretty good piece of business for Danny Briere. Once again, U.S. National Team Development Program, skated in 59 games, 23 points this season. The U.S. NTDP Juniors had 25 games, skated at the World Juniors with Jack Murtaugh, and will also be moving up and possibly having an opportunity to skate with the number 1 prospect heading into next year's draft, and that's Gavin McKenna at Michigan State. Apparently, that decision is down to what McKenna wants to do and what those NIL checks look like, really, as Michigan State and Penn State battle it out for the services of one of the best prospects that the NHL has seen in a little bit in Gavin McKenna. He was excellent during the Memorial Cup. I watched the WHL playoffs, and so saw a decent amount of McKenna towards the later half of the year. So I'm very excited to catch more of him in the NCAA this season. We will touch on the Flyers signings in free agency. I do understand it's July 1st. This is our first episode since we've had the NHL draft, so I wanted to kind of just make sure we didn't forget about the Flyers draft picks, because a lot of important pieces potentially coming into the organization. So 10 minutes is good enough of me rambling. Let's go ahead and get it over to the interview with our guest. And that would be the prospect Don. The prospect Don, I met him at the Combine up in Buffalo. He put out a ton of great content, whether it was the actual interviews themselves or his own potential rankings and stuff like that. And then he had the opportunity to travel out to Los Angeles, be on the floor for the NHL draft. And, you know, it was just a cool opportunity to connect with somebody that, like myself, is kind of in the weeds as best as we can to bring you all of this information. So here is our sit down earlier today with the prospect on Shoot, another Flyer show. Welcome back inside Shoot, another Flyer show. We have a brand new guest here for you today. It's the prospect Don, who is all over the 2025 NHL draft, from the combine, Buffalo, to the actual draft floor itself in Los Angeles. Don, how you doing today?
I'm good. This is my first video since the draft, so there's so much to talk about. And the draft was incredible. What an experience getting to meet all those guys. So yeah, how are you doing?
I can't complain. Just to kind of piggyback off of that, the combine itself, where I met you, was such an awesome opportunity. Not only to kind of see everything that the NHL teams go through in learning about these players, but also just seeing a nervous hockey player going through the ringer was a very interesting experience for honestly a nervous journalist going through the ringer.
Yeah, it's always really interesting. Like, you kind of see them more as humans as long as you do this. And a lot of the advice I got is everybody is a human, no matter how big or the star they are. But with the prospects wise, this is interviews with 32 teams. You have to do interviews with media. You have to perform well with the physical and the fitness testing, and then you got to talk to your agents how everything's going. It's so stressful for these guys. And they're 17, 18 years old. When you go to the NFL, it's 22, 23, 24 year olds, even more. So it is kind of eye-opening to see that process. And I feel like over the course of the season, if you're talking to these guys, you get to understand them more and more. And I don't feel like media now has been tweeting a lot of negative stuff about players because you see them more as humans now. So I think that is also a good thing to see, as well as the questions that they're asked, like the Habs question, what animal you would want to be, or some of the weird ones, like cross off that question off your future list because they don't like it. So you get some inside stuff, but it was great meeting you. It was great meeting all these guys and all these players. We talked to like 65 plus of them. So it's always cool to see when obviously the Flyers got a lot of them that we talked to. So it's always cool to see that too.
Absolutely. And then with you out there in the draft in Los Angeles, did you have a favorite prospect that you interviewed post draft or pre draft even, that you're kind of going to be watching their NHL journey just a little bit more closely?
Well, my first video interview this year, because some of them were phone calls, was actually Matthew Schaefer. And I mean, that guy is
pretty good one.
Yeah, he was one of the best people I've ever talked to personally in my entire life. Like, he doesn't need to be PR trained. If he is, he's incredibly PR trained, but it's like he's genuinely a good human. You saw him on the draft floor. I was so happy for him when he got drafted. Obviously, we all went number one, but the emotion that hit him, you know, alive was amazing to see. Like, just his journey for the past few years, especially with that collarbone injury too, like this year. But obviously, we're talking about the obstacles that he had to face with his mother and his billet mother and his owner and all of multiple people passing away that were really impactful in his life. And it was so incredible to talk to him because he's so mature for his age. I am so excited for him. The one was also Vaslav Nestrasil. I talked to him. I talked to his camp for a very long time. We talked about like things like Fortnite, hobbies, passions. I asked him, if you're an NHL prospect watching this, I'll give you a little tip. I asked him who were the best two teammates, or you can pick two line mates from past or present. Who would they be to maximize your potential? He said his current line mates. And that was like the best answer you could give. Just because of how humble it is, how you're just pushing out your teammates as well. So he was also an incredible person to talk to. I think Lyndon Lakovich and Malcolm Spence were great as well. Same with Jack Ivankovich. These guys, obviously, were all fell a little bit. Like Lyndon Lakovich should have went 30 or 12, like 10 to 12, 10 to 13, 14. He kind of went in the 20. He went 27.
27
I thought that
to
was
the
just
Caps. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake. Yeah, then Ivan Kovic went to the Predators in the second round. So I
I
thought that
love
was
that he talked
interesting.
about idolizing Pecorine, and it's why he
Okay.
wore 35. So I thought that
Wow.
was pretty. I thought that was pretty cool. It's like now he's like, yeah, now I get to learn from Pecorine. I love those stories that come out of the NFL draft, NHL draft.
Well, I actually asked him at media availability. His pro comp was UC Saros. So I asked him, like, because we had talked about it earlier in the season, and at media, I was like, "Oh, cool, it's Jack. I could just ask him this."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Hey, how is it that you idolized this man, and now you're going to be in the same organization?" And he just lit
No,
up.
I might be swapping my Predator goaltenders there, thinking Peck
Oh, so it was
maybe.
UC. So you're talking
It
about my
pro
question. Heck yeah,
it probably was Saros. Honestly, I was
that's
probably
awesome.
swapping my Predator goalies.
Well, I'm glad you remembered my question because that's awesome. Yeah, that was like the only question I got to ask him because I came in late. Because
Hmm.
for the draft, it's super interesting how it's laid out. There's media everywhere,
Hmm.
but sometimes there's three players at a podium at one time, but there's also a draft. So you hear the trade horn, you got to run back in, see what's going on, but then you got to interview multiple players. So I interviewed Van Sagi and like almost every single player, but the thing was like sometimes you were actually watching the draft, so you had to be like at three places at once. So it is
Hmm.
interesting. I will say the Flyers had the best second round in the entire draft. I can say that.
Well,
Uh,
we can
yes,
get there because I wanted to kind of go one by one with the Flyers picks and just kind of get your
awesome.
take, since you were definitely in and around that whole situation. So we kind of touched on it. You got Porter Martone falling down the draft board to 6, depending upon who you're talking to. He was potentially 3, potentially 4. So getting him at number 6 is a big deal for Philadelphia. What's your take on Porter Martone and potentially pairing him with Michkov?
I mean, that is scary to think about. Porter Martone for me is a 35-40 goal scorer a year. This guy is an incredible playmaker, has great vision. You saw what he did with Hockey Canada and then the international game playing with Celebrini and I mean, Sidney Crosby was on that team. He learned a lot from those guys. But the thing is, he kept up with the pace. I asked Chris
Hmm.
Peters and Steven Ellis about his skating, and they both said that 4 or 5 years ago, this guy couldn't skate at all. Like, it looked like he was a beer leaguer. Now, his skating is continuing to get better once they put him into the NCAA, maybe, or if he goes back to Brantford, but once he gets,
Hmm.
goes to the NHL or AHL, they're going to work on his skating so much. And that's what he's doing. This guy is a hockey savant. It's not like he doesn't understand that skating is an issue. If this guy isn't an average skater, you're getting an elite power forward that isn't really a power forward, but the reason that we call him power forward, I guess, is because of the size, the ability that he can start playing angrier, but that is so hard to do. So I it's more soft skill. But this guy is going to be able to absolutely dominate with a player like Michkov because Michkov is an
Hmm.
offensive genius. I thought Michkov should have went number 2 in the 2023 draft. I think that there should
Agreed.
have been more of a conversation between Bedard and Michkov. I've said this, and I'm a Blackhawks fan. Obviously, Bedard should have been the pick because Michkov had 3 years on his contract. But say Michkov was playing in the OHL, like I think that there would have been a lot more talk between who was going to go number 1. Obviously, it probably still would have been Bedard, but
Hmm.
Michkov is an absolute animal. Like offensively, I think that he learned a lot with Torts, but I think a better coach, not better coach, but a coach that's going to be able to tap into that offensive prowess is going to be a lot better for Michkov, as well as he learned a lot with Torts
Oh
because he
yeah.
had to learn the defensive game. He had to learn the responsibilities in the game. I think that was something that kind of went overlooked. And he even said some of that stuff in the press conference, like I liked him. So
Hmm.
Porter Martone is the perfect fit for a guy like Michkov. He's going to be bigger. He might. He's not bad defensively. He's going to be bad or worse. Sorry, worse in
Hmm.
transition, but it's going to be because of those first 3 strides. But he's going to be able to get better. He's not a slow skater. He'll get you to point A to point B when he starts skating. My comparison to his skating was always an old timey car or a lawnmower. It's going to take a little while to get going, but once it's going, it's good. So you're getting a really good player with Porter Martone. I thought the Blackhawks were going to look at him to pair him up with Bedard. So you're getting a player that could have been the 3rd or 2nd overall pick. The Sharks were
Mm.
looking at him to pair up with Celebrini. If, like, say Martone scored like 5 goals in that world's in the with the men in Hockey Canada.
The World Juniors or
Yeah,
the
well,
World Champs.
no, Worlds. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
World Championships. He would have probably been the number 2 pick. Not that he did that, but I'm just
Hmm.
saying, like, I think that Martone should have been 3rd or 4th picked. The reason that I put Hagen's 3rd and not 4 because of Martone, it was because they're the same tier of player. What do you want? Like, do you want a center or do you want a forward? So that's kind of the only reason I would put him 4. But he's a top 3 player in this class, talent wise.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, and they had the pick between Higgins and
Yeah, they
Martone,
did.
and
Yeah.
it goes to show that they're betting on that talent with especially a team needing a center. Especially when you look at the rest of their draft, I don't think they were as interested in a 5'10" center. Although
No.
I give a lot more stock to the performance that Higgins put up at Boston College. I think it's kind of crazy to say that a point per game there is undervalued, but you also got to remember he's 18 playing against 21, 22-year-olds as
Mhm.
opposed to 18 playing 19, 20-year-olds. So, that makes a big difference, when things come down to it. Now I know you were excited about this because when we started, before we started recording, you mentioned his name to me, and that's a player that there's a bit of consternation or in Philadelphia, which is a bit wild. Picked at 12. A lot of Flyers fans are like, well, you gave up 2 firsts. You gave up 22 and 31, and we're just not happy that you gave up 2 firsts. I'm a big fan of the move because you're able to go and get a big center, two-way, intelligent, size off the puck. Reminds me a ton of the Couturier pick back when they got him. I think he was in the mid-teens as well. And it's just a guy that it's, again, going to take a little bit of work. He's not going to come into training camp and earn himself a job. But if they can fix his skating, you got a pretty good center there that can be a top 2 or like a second line center. If
Mhm.
not, settle in as a third line center.
The thing about Nesbitt is he plays an old style game, and that was from Greg Boyson from CHGO. But the thing is, like we talked about, I've talked to a lot of people about Nesbitt just because I thought he was going to be a Blackhawks
Hmm.
target at 25. But the thing is, there were 3 teams in the teams that wanted Nesbitt. So this is a guy that, like, I'll give you an example from the NFL draft. Like Colston Loveland with the Bears. He was a guy
Hmm.
that everybody seemed to want. Even the Rams tried to trade up for him. And the Rams, they always pick a great player. It's
Hmm.
very like Carolina Hurricanes. But when there's a player that's kind of falling in a class on scouting boards, GMs are not going to be like, no, that guy's going higher. Why would they do that? It's all smokescreen. So Jack Nesbitt was a guy that everybody seemed to like and was higher on boards than consensus with the media and the scouts and people posting like me on YouTube videos every day. Like he was higher on consensus, and sometimes it's hard, but this guy is more translatable to NHL GMs than the average eye because I don't see him as a 2C. But the thing is, I also see, them take Jet Luchenko, and now they
Hmm.
have 2 middle 6 centers that they could just interchange depending on which one hits or which one is going to play the role better that they want. So it's not necessarily that this was a over trade. However, I will say, like, what it was 22 and 31. So the Kings
Hmm.
got Henry Brusevich. And Henry, I'm going to talk about the players because it was Bill Zonin and Henry Brusevich in those spots.
Hmm.
Henry lost a lot of playing time, especially in the playoffs. At the Mem Cup, he played well, but in the playoffs, he was losing minutes. He was playing like 14 minutes a game, even though he was playing 20 previously. So what that means to me is that I don't necessarily think that was a value pick with the players on the board, like Zorowski, who I think should have
Well, that was
been,
a trade back into the first
yeah,
round for LA because
yeah,
that was
like
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But it was still like
hmm,
where
yeah.
Philly could have picked.
Hmm.
What you guys did was basically pick the players I thought had first round value in that second round. So it's
Hmm.
a who I would have taken at 31.
Yeah.
Jack Murtag, Shane Van Sage, like
Hmm.
Carter Amico kind of down on the list. So you
Hmm.
guys got 2 first round players on my board
Yeah.
at, you
In
know,
that second round.
in that second round. and I'm really high on Matthew Guard. I'll talk about that a little later because I got great interviews with him over the course of the season, and I think he's
Mhm.
really good. He's also a big player. But you guys got Jack Nesbitt, who's a player that's going to fit what you need and a role, and also has a lot more upside than the average eye, and is translatable and projectable into the NHL game for middle six. I don't see him as a 2C, but I don't need to see him as a 2C. You guys have a ton of offensive weapons on that first and like top six lines
Mhm.
on top six, honestly. So I think you guys did a really good job, even though it did look like it was a bit of a risk. But you guys got, like, if Van Sagi was your pick at 31, I would have been
Mhm.
congratulating you. The fact that he wasn't and you got him at 48, that's
Mhm.
fantastic. So this
It
was a
also
no lose situation.
it goes to show you how fascinating the NHL scouting boards are when you've got players you're like, hey, we would be happy with Van Sagi at 31, but you've got Amico higher because they took him at 38. You got Murtaugh higher than that, or not higher than that, but higher than Van Sagi at 40 for Murtaugh. So it's pretty interesting to see how all of that plays out. As you're able
Yeah.
to tick off the board, and again, it's been a lot of struggle for the Flyers to get all of those picks, and to make it trade up and go get a center that you want. Honestly, it's worth the move. It's worth the risk.
And
I would think that they wanted one of McQueen or Nesbitt. I think that they kind of circled one of those and were happy, and I
yeah.
think they
Yeah.
accomplished their goal.
I like would say for the Carter Amico thing, the Flyers saw like Bomidian,
Hmm.
Brusevich, Wang, Rombach, Fiddler, all come off the board right back to back to back to back to back,
Hmm.
basically. Within a span of like 10 picks, they all came off the board. Even like starting from 28 to 36, you had
Hmm.
five of the biggest defenders in there go. I do not believe that they had Carter Amico like falling to them at 48 after that happened. So they were
Sure.
like, we got to take this guy. And then Shane Van Sagi fell into their lap because I do believe the way he plays is going to be um, I think of him more as a bottom six, but it's going to be like an
Hmm.
elite bottom six player. Like,
I mean,
obviously,
you've
yeah.
got you've got players like Denver Barkey that's about to graduate. I would expect probably AHL time for
Mhm.
him. You're adding players that play that pesty style role. With your that, but that can also contribute offensively too, which was a big part uh, in Philadelphia. It recently is just not getting production from your bottom six, and you need to get at least a little something more than just some hits. Generally
Mhm.
speaking, out of those positions.
Yeah, Van Sagi is more of a playoff player where he only played 12 minutes a night in the NCAA. It's kind of like a Zach Levine who was playing on the bench for UCLA when he was
Hmm.
drafted, I think, like in the top 12 or whatever it was way back when. But it's basically like that because Shane Van Sagi has so much potential, even though he really didn't get a lot of playing time and didn't get the trust of the coaches in a lot of ways. But this guy was already contributing at MSU. I think that he already has NHL ready size. He doesn't have NHL ready skill yet, but he
Hmm.
can definitely provide. I think that the only player I probably would have taken, even though we fell so far, over a Jack Murtagh, because
Hmm.
I think that was the best pick, would be Malcolm Spence. But the thing was, there was a reason Malcolm Spence fell. I have no idea what it is, but there's definitely a reason he fell all the way down to pick 43 to the
Hmm.
Rangers. So I think that they picked every player that they should have taken. I mean, yeah, that second round was just absolutely incredible. You guys had a great first pick. I think the only thing was Nesbitt. Maybe if you guys
Hmm.
went and
And
got
that's
Eklund. Oh,
that's
go ahead.
that's what a lot of people are saying. A lot of even like Daily Face Off and The Athletic and whatnot. That generally speaking is a consensus. That they crushed the second round. The
Mhm.
Nesbitt was a bit of a question mark, but again, as you're saying, three teams involved uh, in a heated negotiation, plus a trade within the division with your rival team with the
Mhm.
Penguins, is probably going to cost you a little bit more. So I'm sure they would have loved to have gotten it done with just the second rounders, and kept one of them, but they definitely made up for it with the picks that they had.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the only thing I will say though is They had to pay a lot for Jack Nesbitt. What I would have done is they were probably calling so many teams ahead. Obviously,
Hmm.
Pittsburgh wanted Kindle, and obviously you were going to have to pay the same amount because it was 11 and 12. But if you didn't get Nesbitt and you traded up to 13, 14, 15, or whatever it is, you were still
Hmm.
getting, I think, Carter Bear, Jackson Smith, Braden Coots, and Victor Eklund. Those are all in the same tier of players. I was always higher on Coots. I actually had him marked
Hmm.
at 15 for the Canucks. And, the thing is, I think Nesbitt, if there were talks that this guy was going to go in the top 15, which
Hmm.
everybody is talking about, it's a good pick because he gives you that 6'4" size, really
Hmm.
beefy. I think that this is a really good player and a really good pick. So, or 12, it's going to look a lot better, but it's just a couple spots. You got to get your guy if you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that
Like.
portion of things. I do apologize. We have some weather rolling through the Philadelphia area, so it might be causing a bit of a hiccup here. So maybe another couple of minutes. Just some quick thoughts on your Blackhawks and what they were able to do, getting one of my favorite players in the draft, Anton Frondell, up
Mhm.
there at 3.
Well, this is great because I obviously have been watching Anton for a very long time. Him and Vaslav Nestrasov have been playing against each other since they were like 8 or 9 years old. There was a
Oh
clip
wow.
that came out that Vaslav's father posted, and he Vaslav made Anton fall on in transition. So he went between the legs for a goal at 9 years old. So I really do like Anton and Vaslav. The fact that they've known each other for very long. What the Blackhawks did was take a safer pick at third overall,
Hmm.
and it was you're going to play top 6 minutes. You're going to score 30, 35, 40 goals a season. And your transition game is going to get better going from the SHL to the to the American rank size. You're going to play good defensively, and while your skating is going to continue to get better. You are not going to need to be the guy that's going to play drive because Victor Eklund was that guy in the SHL
Hmm.
for Anton Frundell. I truly believe that their next two picks were the boom or bust types, even though I think Vasilov has a lot more floor, but like Mason West, I think is boom or bust because
Hmm.
he's a football player. So he might not even, I don't know. It's not like clear set in stone, like this guy's going to play if he gets a big NIL deal, even though everyone keeps saying that.
Hmm.
Like, but whatever. I do think Mason West will play in the NHL, and I think he's going to be really good, and but we just don't have enough tape. So the thing with Anton is you're getting a safer player, then you take those home run swings the next two picks. I
Yeah,
think
it also
I
helps when you have a Connor Bedard that
yep.
you can lean on. I still with Frondell, one of the best shots I've ever seen on tape. So the chance to you know have them come through. It would be some fun practices out there
Yeah.
in Chicago. It just like here in Philly. You got Zegers and Michkov and Martone at least for training camp anyway.
Yeah.
Should be a lot of fun. Um, Before we wrap up, you mentioned guard Matthew Guard, and
Yes.
you want to touch on him a little bit. So what do you got on guard?
Yeah. So Guard is the type of guy that you put on your power play too, and he's just going to get into the front of the net. He's going to use his hands and he's going to screen the goalie. I really do like what he brings. I think he's more of a third line contributor. But the thing is, he's big. He is going to not. He's going to gain the trust of coaches, and I think he's going to be a fan favorite very, very quickly. This guy had a really good season this year for the Red Deer Red Deer, and I just
Hmm.
feel watching him continuing to play with these Flyers, it's like, where is he going to play? Just because you guys picked up every single player I liked in the second round. But the thing is, I think that bottom six is going to be phenomenal fit with him, and he's going to be an absolute dude in the NHL. It's not like he's going to put up 30, 40 goals. He's going to be someone that puts up 15 to 18, going to have good offensive vision. I think that he's not going to be a liability on defense. He's going to be one of those playoff players, like you said, you guys targeted. Him and Van Sagi could probably be on the same line. But the thing is, if he was in a different organization, it would be a lot better. Because, like, It's just that there's so many options now for the Flyers. So I'm a
Mm-hmm.
little worried about what his role is going to be, but this guy's really good. I think that the Flyers did so well here. Um, you know, just there was nobody else really on the board. Obviously, you could have
Mm-hmm.
taken the upside swing with a Ivan Ryabkin. Obviously, I think he or a Jack Ivankovic, but
Mm-hmm.
there was really no reason to. Um, Matthew Guard
Ryabkin's
was
one
just
that I would have really enjoyed, but I wasn't disappointed with the guard pick. It's here, take a handful of bottom six wingers and bottom six players across the board, see who sticks. There also tend to be movable players too,
yeah, yeah.
you're able to get back a second, third rounder for some of those players in a couple of years. So very interesting draft results for both clubs. And we can't end this stream without talking about a potential three-peat in Florida. Managing to keep Ekblad, managing to keep Brad Marchand. It's going to be a really, really, really tough one. Really, really tough team to beat down there in Florida.
Yeah, I saw a tweet today. It was like combined for 20 million was three of the top players. I can't even remember, but it was like Vancouver hit Garland,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like three players that are not superstars. And then for Panthers, you got to keep like Marchand, Eklund, or Ekblad. See Eklund. See, I'm still on the draft. It's going to be hard to get out of it. But it's just the fact that they're signing these team friendly deals
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even a flat cap anymore. So it's just these deals are going to age better and better. The Marchand deal is not going to age better, but what you're going to be able to do is, just maneuver the cap at that
Mm-hmm.
time, and it's going to
Yeah.
lessen the cap hit every year. So giving them the 6 years is going to allow them to make moves and do it a lot cheaper. I think that was fantastic. It's just the Panthers have the Blackhawks pick this year, or like the Blackhawks have the Panthers pick, but
Mm-hmm.
so is it going to be 32? They have some good options at 32, but it's like, could it be the year that they get out in the first round? I hope so, just because I
Yeah.
really would like a top 20
Given
pick.
yeah, given the trade, that's kind of how they looked at it with the Edmonton trade last year for the Flyers. They picked at 32, traded with Edmonton second, and then got 31 this year, and then used that to trade up to get Nesbitt. So it's the circle of life in the NHL
Yeah,
in the trades.
that's a
So
really good point.
thank you very much for your time for stopping by. Where can people find you on the interwebs, Don?
Yeah. So at the Prospect Dawn at X, TikTok, and YouTube, I got growing platforms in all three places. I appreciate everybody's support over there. And, I'm going to be posting a lot of my interviews with prospects this year, prospects next year. And I got some really good stuff coming on. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate, you know, all the Flyers talk we had because they did really good. So it was easy for me.
Well, thank you very much for stopping by, and we'll be right back with to wrap up. Shoot another Flyer show after this. All right, so there you have it. Once again, thank you very much to the prospect Don for his appearance, his first appearance here on Shoot Another Flyer show. It is July 1st. We talked about all the prospects. We talked about the NHL draft. So let's talk about free agency day. That's right, silly season in the NHL. And thankfully for Flyers fans, not all of that silly in the contracts given out today by Daniel Briere. Yes, the Christian Dvorak comes with a bit of sticker shock. $5.4 million for a forward that you've probably never really heard of. Yes, Christian Dvorak is a solid player. He had his best season under Tocchet when he was a younger player with the Arizona Coyotes. Last season, played in all 82 games for Montreal, has 33 points, gives Danny Briere a little bit of insurance at that 2C, 3C position for a fairly reasonable cost. I would have to imagine that they paid a little extra for a 1 year movable contract than opposed to go, 4.8, 4.9, 5 even, and sign them to a 2 year deal. So very interesting acquisition there. It was one of the first contracts signed On the day, you also had Noah Jolson coming from the Vancouver Canucks, also played under the Rick Tocchet system at one point. So a couple of players that should help Rick Tocchet really implement his system here in Philadelphia. So a couple of big acquisitions. Well, I wouldn't even say big, but notable acquisitions there in free agency. A couple of depth signings. Lane Peterson played in the AHL the last 2 seasons, 64 points in 84 games. Should likely help out Lehigh Valley. As well, Dennis Gilbert. I'm not entirely sure which way to say that. 1 year deal, $875,000. Played 29 games last season, split between Buffalo and Ottawa. 9 points. Nothing wildly crazy, but another depth defenseman for the Flyers / for the Phantoms. And then the one everybody waited a couple hours for, and that's Danny Briere gets his goalie. Woohoo! Dan Vladar. Yep, that's right. Dan Vladar. Career 3 goals against average. Career 0.895% save percentage. He does have a winning mark. 105 games played. He's 49, 34, and 16. Last season, 30 games played, 12, 11, and 6, a 0.280 goals against, and a 0.898 save percentage. Look, in all honesty, if you can get 90 to 91% save percentage from your backup goaltender, you're able to get 30, 35 games out of Vladar, and the rest go to Sam Ersson because he's healthy and he's playing well, then that's the best that you can hope for if you're Philadelphia. If the move doesn't work, well, then you're in a good situation too, because Gavin McKenna is the consensus top overall pick. And honestly, you're going to need bad goaltending to have a shot at Gavin McKenna. You saw it this year with the Islanders. You can't plan for the NHL draft lottery. The Islanders jumped from, I believe it was 11 up to number 1. So you can't just poke holes in the boat and let the boat sink. You got to be competitive. You got to build the right way. And that's what Danny Briere has done successfully up until this point. At least it seems like that anyway. Shout out to my man, Dan Berry Sports Highlights. Always stops by for our shows here. So thank you very much to him and the rest of you that have stopped by for the 27th edition of Shoot, another Flyer show. It's absolutely incredible that I get to do this and speak into this lovely Logitech camera for you all. But the fact that y'all are spending at this point 43 minutes of your days with me is pretty freaking cool. On the board for the Flyers, a lot of rumors. Max Shabanov from the KHL pretty much should be a 1-year deal. Shouldn't really cost a whole lot to see if the 25-year-old can get it done in the NHL. 67 points in 65 KHL games last year. 150 points in 207 KHL games. Best plus minus in the playoffs at plus 14. Most goals in the KHL playoffs at 10. So, undersized, yes. 5'8". Could that be an issue? Absolutely. But as Michkov showed, if you've got skill in the NHL, that can take you a long way. Adding somebody like a Shabanov to a core that has a Michkov in it, that has a Zegras in it, that has Porter Martone on the way, could be a really good get if they're able to get him. He fits in Philadelphia, and then they're able to work on the contract from there. So it'll be very, very interesting to see if Danny Briere and the Flyers can get that deal done. The most recent that I've heard, Briere was waiting on contact from the camp. I believe the Flyers were, I don't want to use the wrong word, I believe that they were hopeful that the deal was going to get done. But until that information comes out from one of your Friedmans or any of your other big hockey pundits that are out there, that'll be what Philadelphia fans will be waiting for. Time for gritty questions and answers. Thank you very much for Jack for checking in. Pretty simple question today. Who's your favorite Flyers draft pick from the 2025 NHL draft? So thank you very much for the question, Jack. And it's going to be second round pick, Carter Amico. A big right-handed defender 6'5", 225 pounds. 18-year-old from Maine. Big, mobile defenseman. And that's something that can be very difficult to find in the NHL, particularly him being right-handed. If he's still around for training camp, I would love to see the conversation between Carter Amico and Rasmus Ristolainen, because those two could have a whole heck of a lot to chat about, given the size, given the skill sets that they bring. Even though Risto's not a defensive stalwart, he's still got good defensive aspects to his game, and that can go a long way. So once again, Jack, thanks again for the question. I would go ahead and give Carter Amico a defenseman next season for Boston University. It's going to be fascinating watching the NCAA division, or NCAA Division One men's hockey next season, with all the potential options. A lot of CHL draft picks making the move with the rule changes to the NCAA. Massive programs: Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State. So it should be really exciting to watch the NCAA this season. That'll do it for episode 27 of Shoot, Another Flyer Show. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Thanks again to the prospect Don for joining us after a very busy weekend at the NHL draft. We got to talk a little bit of Flyers with them, got to talk a little bit about the Chicago Blackhawks, and then a little bit on the free agency signings that happened today, mostly with the Florida Panthers. And the Rabbits, they were able to pull out of their hat, keeping Brad Marchand and Aaron Ekblad down there in Florida. We also touched on the Flyers signings in free agency, mainly Christian Dvorak, a movable contract towards the deadline, as well as goaltender Dan Vladar to go ahead and pair there with Sam Urson. So keep it locked to Philadelphia Sports Network in Metro Philadelphia. Once again, I'm Christopher Babos. We got plenty of content coming your way, whether it's Philadelphia Eagles and Flipping the Birds. We've got Alley Talk coming up for the Philadelphia Phillies. Our Sixers show, which I'm forgetting the name of, which is really bad. They had an awesome episode. If you are a Sixers fan, you need to go ahead and check out the most recent episode that's available on YouTube. Talking and searching is not working. So this ending's going to be botched. That's okay. Philadelphia Sports Network on the YouTube. I believe it's. That's right. I'm going to make you wait for it. The real reason the Sixers drafted VJ Edgecombe was the name of the stream. Over 1,000 views for Philly Sports Network, which was just absolutely incredible. So good look to all of the awesome streamers that we've got here and journalists working for Philadelphia Sports Network. Tap in next Tuesday. We'll be able to talk a little more about the NHL free agency process and what the Flyers are looking like coming out of the 2025 NHL development camp. I'm going to do my best to get some coverage in between a pretty busy Philly schedule, but we should make an appearance. So keep an eye on the social media accounts at CBabosFreight on Twitter. Give me a follow. Blue Sky's the same thing. You can find me, Christopher Babos, on LinkedIn, Christopher Michael on Facebook. I don't bite, so send me a message, say hello, and make a new friend. That's how these things work. So once again, thanks for sticking around, and we'll catch you later on the next episode of Shoot, Another Flyer Show. Have a wonderful evening.
Want you to bleed for me.